the temporary camp, when we first arrived in Thailand, I remember, like I say, it was very transient. We just stayed there for like a couple of nights, and then I think they bus us to Bambina camp after that. Mm-hmm. That's the way I kind of remember. My memory is vague, but I remember being taken by many Hmong people into truckload. It's not bus, it's truck. So we were put in the back of the truck and transported, more like bus, but not bus. It's an empty part, and you can hold on to it. It's not the fancy bus we see nowadays. It's just no cover on top. Just open space. You can see behind you. You can see the road, dust flying through. Travel many miles. I would say about 100 or 200 miles, maybe the most. My imagination on road, because I remember stopping along the road before we come to the certain camp, to Vinai camp. And then from there, I think we were assigned to stay in these long aluminum foil roof apartment. There's like 2-story of line. They're on the hill, and so they will have these leg on the apartment sticking down. And as young kids, we will be playing underneath the ground floor, and then also the second floor, and then the third floor. It's like one of those elevated hilly slope where you have to build a leg up to support it evenly with that. So those are the apartment that I remember living in. And you can imagine hundreds of families living in one building. And they sectioned off those buildings into smaller room for family to live in. So there's 2 floors, bottom floor and top floor. So I remember that kind of apartment living. If you look in the old photo of the refugee camp, those are the apartment I grew up for a year or 2 years in.
Was that a different camp, or is that still part of ME9?
I think it's a similar design for all the camp in Thailand. I remember they had this big rain collection of a bin as big as a quarter of a room, and this cylinder, and they would have rain water collected from the roof, dripping in the pipe to that, and we would drink from those only. Yeah. We would use those as a cooking water. That's one of the things about the refugee camp in Thailand. The other thing about the camp life is it's mostly open. Mostly open, meaning they're enclosed, but the circumference around the camp is pretty wide. So there's some room in the village, the camp that we live, that my mother is able to do a little garden somewhere down. So you can travel from one camp to the next. They call this one camp, but they call those areas. Kwan means like section or apartment. And you can live in this section of the house, or you can move to the other section, but they usually assign you one section. So your whole family stay there. While your relatives and uncle, they live in another section, really far up or next up. And then I remember having a little education in Thailand. And for a year there, or almost 2 years, I was able to go to school.
Like the school was in the camp?
In the camp. Yeah, the school was at the camp. And they have this open classroom. I call it the open classroom, right? Because they only have the roof, but no wall, right? And they have this teacher. She's Thai. And she's quite young, do I remember. And she would teach us Thai, right? And we don't have books, so we just have this black chalkboard, right? Each of the kids will have a chalkboard, just kind of write like that. And she would have this big black screen on the wall, and she will write down a chalk, use the chalk to write whatever she say. I don't remember a lot of Thai, you know, but she taught us that, and I was one of her favorite students. So, you know, she would give me all her box of chalk and eraser to keep and be responsible for. So every night I would bring it back to her. And every morning I could bring it back to her. So I felt like I'm accomplished, you know. So I think when I'm giving that, it's like I'm a best tutor or best teacher student. And I remember that part. But I think I enjoy school all the time. I think that letter and science has always been my forte, the thing that draws me. Yeah, so I think that my first experience at a good education, what education was earlier like was in Thailand.
Yeah.
And the teacher I had was very compassionate, very loving, very kind. I did not have bad experience with her. She wasn't one of those teachers like in Laos where you don't understand and they'll smack your finger or they'll whip you in the back. She was different, you know. She was more thoughtful and kind, you know. She was very open. So I thought that was very truthful of teacher. And so my early memory of teacher was of her too. And I think that all my 19 years of teaching, it didn't occur to me, but I have already set up my teaching model in my head from all those teachers that I've been through, right? So I think a good teacher have to have good teacher to be model after, right? So I think all of us have our memories of the best teacher. And one of my best teacher was during that Thailand time.
So then you guys had school. How were you getting food? Did they give you food?
Good question. The food were portioned by the United Nations, and they give us weekly meal. I think they would give like canned food sometimes. They will cut some meat and divide it to everybody, a household, very small portion. No vegetable, though I don't remember vegetable, but my mother grew a little garden there for a year or two there, so we're able to have some green vegetable. But for meat and canned food and fish, they were supply, and some rice, yeah. So they were supplied by the United Nations. So we get that meal weekly, and it's very difficult because we are dependent on two things: the meal the United Nations provide for us, and the money that our uncle in America sent to us. Although we weren't able to venture out of the camp in Thailand, there's Hmong people or Thai people that come into the camp too, you know, and bring food, or you can buy things from them. And some Hmong people were able to get permit to go out to Thailand camp and go to the town or do something. But I think that's very hard to do. Some people steal their way into, you know, outside the fences. But I think most of the Hmong people were confined to the zone of the refugee camp. And all life in Hmong happened in the refugee camp. I remember the first time I experienced cinema. Cinema is the open door theater, like the movie projector, right, on the screen. And we turned a soccer field at nighttime. Actually Thai people turn into a movie theater. So I get to experience my first open door movie theater in Thailand. And I thought it was beautiful. I mean, I never had seen any movie in my whole life. So, because you had to pay, right? So we were little kids, we weren't able to pay, so we had to snitch under the curtain. You had this fake wooden curtain around, but you know there's certain holes you can, your little kid you can dig through and you can still watch.
So they were doing that like, but they were charging.
Yeah, they were charging Hmong people.
Like, are you, if I was in the U.S. and I was sending you $100, would you get $100, or would some be taken away, or how did that work?
I don't know at that time, but from my memory, I don't know at that time, but from my memory, I can recall that it is accurate based on the exchange of currency. So my uncle would send us $60. My father would be able to cash it for the current amount in Thai and buy us food. Thai people love money, right? So as long as you have money, they can supply you with food and other stuff, other material that you need. And so I think there's some exchange of merchandise or some marketing, commerce going on between the camp and the outside Thai life.
It's very hard.
But the hard part is very hard. It's a struggle to live in the refugee camp because we are so limited to resources. But there are things in the refugee camp that is more alleviating, meaning it's not as
or frightening,
scary or frightening as in Laos. So Thai is more like a hot haven for all the refugees to settle, despite all the loss, despite all the death, all the loss. That short period of calm,
sorrow,
I
and
think
pain.
there's certain
The Hmong elder
sorrow
pretend
and
not to
pain,
Yeah.
but the Hmong elder pretend not to show as much in the refugee camp. Or they can't show because they don't have the resource to show. So life lingers on slowly in camp. It's not full with sunshine, but it is some memory in the camp and refugee camp. And some Hmong people decide not to come
stay
to
close
America
Thailand.
because they
Yeah.
found ways
So
to
when
stay close to
the
Thailand.
wave of Hmong people,
So when a wave of Hmong people came in the 80s to America and to French and to Guyana and all other parts in Australia, many Hmong, almost half or maybe more, remain behind in Thailand. So now you can still see the other group of Hmong refugees still in Thailand.